A poor scholar and the Marquis' residence came to propose marriage on the same day. My legitimate elder sister snatched the broken silver hairpin from the poor-born suitor and pressed it to her own throat, swearing she would rather die than marry into the Marquis' household. Everyone in the family tried every possible way to stop her. Only I knew the truth. She had been reborn. This time, the title of top scholar's wife belongs to me, she said with a smug smile. You can go to the Marquis' residence and live out your days as a widow. She looked utterly pleased with herself. I pressed my lips together and said nothing. Escaping poverty and enjoying a life of comfort. This time it should be my turn.
Welcome to a journey of love and destiny under the moonlight. I'm the voice behind Moonlit Love Stories. Now let us step into the story.
Father arranged marriages for my elder sister and me at the same time. One was to the young general of the Zhongyong Marquis' residence. The other was to his impoverished yet favored student. Father, I choose young Master Zhao. My sister didn't hesitate for a second. The moment she grabbed Zhao Shuxing's silver hairpin, I knew for certain, she too had been reborn. The silver hairpin had already darkened to a dull brown-black. In our previous life, my sister wouldn't have given it so much as a glance. Father froze briefly, cast a look at me, and still spoke his mind. You are the legitimate daughter. You should marry into the Marquis' residence. The Zhao family is poor. This match would suit Warner better. I lowered my head, suppressing the smile at the corner of my mouth, and watched coldly as father went through the motions of his earnest persuasion. My sister grew tired of his nagging. With sudden ferocity, she pressed the broken silver hairpin against her neck and swore she would marry no one but Zhao Shuxing. With things having come to this, there was no point in saying more. Rows of dowry chests were prepared in the rear courtyard. Using the excuse of the Zhao family's poverty, most of them were allocated to my sister. I didn't mind at all. The more generous the dowry, the more freely the Zhao family would spend it. I only wondered whether those dozens of bridal chests would ever be enough to satisfy the depths of human greed. And so, the marriages were settled. The glassy jade pendant of the Zhongyong Marquis' residence fell into my hands. In my previous life, I had never met this nominal brother-in-law of mine. I had only heard that Shen Siji rushed to the battlefield on his wedding night. After months of war, he returned with half his face burned and one leg crippled. Though he still bore the title of loyal and brave general, all real power had long since been stripped from him. My sister had always been proud and domineering. Being forced to stay home day after day to care for a half-crippled man naturally bred resentment. If Shen Siji had died outright, that would have been simpler. 3 years of widowhood, and she could have returned to her natal family. But instead, he lingered in that half-dead state, slowly wearing away every shred of her patience. She cried, she screamed, she made scenes. Afraid of public censure and of being mocked by his colleagues at court, father strictly forbade her from seeking a divorce. Meanwhile, Zhao Shuxing passed all 3 stages of the imperial examinations with top honors. His future was limitless. In the end, my sister turned all her bitterness on me. Like a madwoman, hair loose and wild, she charged into the top scholar's residence, cleaver in hand, hacking indiscriminately. I'm the legitimate daughter. I'm the one who should have been the top scholar's wife. I met a violent death beneath her frenzied blows. She threw back her head and laughed wildly, then chose to hang herself. After being reborn, she wasted no time in choosing the Zhao family marriage. I had warned her that Zhao Shuxing was not a good man. That she refused to listen was exactly what I expected. The 6th day of the 6th lunar month, a date my legitimate elder sister had chosen with the utmost care. She knew that on this very day, Shen Siji would receive sudden orders to march to war. I was escorted into the Zhongyong Marquis' residence. After completing the formal kneeling rites, I heard a rush of urgent hoofbeats outside. The matron supporting me remained perfectly composed and quickly guided me into the bridal chamber. Moments later, a pair of black boots embroidered with gold thread stopped before me. Shen Siji had arrived in great haste, yet when he lifted my red bridal veil embroidered with mandarin ducks, he deliberately slowed his movements, his touch gentle. My apologies, madam, he said softly. Rebels are causing unrest in the northwest. I must depart at once. His red wedding robes had already been replaced by armor. A long sword hung at his waist, his jet-black hair tied high. The sharp lines of his face looked especially cold and austere. I had only known that after his disfigurement, people called him the ghost-faced general. I never knew that before all this he had been so strikingly handsome. I lost myself for a brief moment, then turned to retrieve a silk handkerchief. Military matters are urgent. General, there's no need to worry about me. You're leaving in such haste. Take a few pastries to stave off hunger on the road. I wrapped the cakes from the table in the handkerchief and carefully placed them in his hand. When our fingertips brushed, he seemed to shudder slightly. I've wronged you, he said. I shook my head. I hadn't intended to say more. But when I saw him tuck the pastries into his chest, I couldn't help mentioning someone. Will Deputy General Sun Yuan be by your side? Yes. Why do you ask? Preparations for departure were already underway. Voices calling out constantly from outside. Yet Shen Siji didn't rush me. I made up a casual excuse, saying that Sun Yuan had abandoned his first wife and lacked moral character, and hoped he would be treated with caution. A few brief words. Whether Shen Siji truly took them to heart, I couldn't tell. Some of it, after all, was only my suspicion. In my previous life, the Shen army crushed the Northwest Rebellion with thunderous force, driving the enemy back hundreds of miles and restoring true peace to the people. But Shen Siji suffered grievous injuries. After the grand reward ceremony, he grew increasingly despondent. Sun Yuan, on the other hand, rose swiftly through the ranks, eventually becoming the highest-ranking military official. There had to be unseen schemes behind it all. After a long silence, Shen Siji raised his hand and removed the most inconspicuous hairpin from my hair, closing his fingers around it. Wait for me to come back. The Zhongyong Marquis family had produced generations of loyal martyrs. The old Marquis and the heir to the residence were stationed at the border year-round. Shen Siji, the second son, had gone to the battlefield at just 13. My mother-in-law, though a woman herself, never protested on his behalf, declaring that a true man should set his sights on the four corners of the world. Having lived a second life, I had no intention of wasting it. Just as I was considering what I should do next, my mother-in-law summoned me. Warner, this is the household authority. From today on you will manage it. I froze and instinctively refused. My mother-in-law was still alive, and my elder sister-in-law was also in the residence. No matter how one looked at it, managing the household affairs shouldn't fall to me. Don't be nervous, my mother-in-law said gently. This was decided after discussing it with your elder sister-in-law. I was even more confused. My sister-in-law was the daughter of a merchant family. Nearly half the shops in the capital belonged to her maternal family. She was, by all accounts, immensely wealthy. By birth or by seniority, she was far more suitable to manage the household than I was. Your elder sister-in-law needs to oversee the estates and shops outside the residence. She simply can't spare the time. My mother-in-law looked kind and benevolent. She wasn't upset by my refusal and explained everything patiently. Besides, letting you take charge was also Siji's wish. He specifically sent word about it yesterday. My heart tightened. Shen Siji had departed immediately after bidding me farewell yesterday. I hadn't expected that, even in such haste, he would still mention the household authority to his mother. Was it because he was afraid I'd lose face? On the very day of my wedding, my husband had gone off to war. No matter the reason, I was bound to become gossip for the noble ladies of the capital. In my previous life, my elder sister had also lost face over this and gradually grew resentful of the Marquis' residence. But back then, the household authority had clearly remained in my mother-in-law's hands. Mother, I truly can't manage such a vast residence. I was born of a concubine. My biological mother died in childbirth. Raised under my legal mother's roof, I was merely fed and clothed. No one ever taught me how to manage a household. That doesn't matter, my mother-in-law said. I'll teach you myself. Warner, the Zhongyong Marquis' residence is different from other noble families. Here, women can have their own world. Live freely and boldly. Don't let Siji bully you in the future. It was the first time in my life anyone had placed such expectations on me. Of course, I threw myself into it wholeheartedly. The Zhongyong Marquis' residence had an upright family tradition. without the tangled schemes common among aristocratic clans. Whether it was the old Marquis or my elder brother-in-law, neither took concubines. For them, a lifetime with one beloved companion was enough. Men defended the nation on the battlefield. Women managed the household within. This kind of harmony was something I had never imagined. My mother-in-law taught me the principles of household management. My sister-in-law taught me how to work the abacus and keep accounts. Living through 2 lifetimes, this was the first time I truly felt treated as family. I couldn't help but wonder, such a good Marquis residence, how had my elder sister ever found it lacking? People always say merchants are lowly, my sister-in-law said as the abacus beads clattered sharply. But if not for merchants like us working behind the scenes, relying on a few silver-tongued civil officials alone, where would peace and prosperity come from? She calculated the final sum for provisions, then made a bold stroke of the brush, and ordered it sent to the northern frontier. Elder sister-in-law, you and elder brother. I hesitated. I truly didn't understand. No matter how wealthy a merchant family was, they were rarely able to marry into a household like the Zhongyong Marquis. I wanted the man. He wanted my money. We happened to like each other as well. No one lost out. Her straightforward answer left me speechless. Warner, you live far too cautiously, she added. Don't let that second young master's free-spirited nature push you around. I felt even more bewildered. From our brief encounter, Shen Siji had seemed upright and reserved. Why did both my mother-in-law and sister-in-law think he would bully me? On the day I returned to my natal home, it was my elder sister-in-law who accompanied me. Silks, satins, gold, silver, and jade were piled into carriage after carriage, stuffed in as though money meant nothing at all. It's fine, my sister-in-law said breezily. Your elder sister-in-law is so poor she has nothing left but money. Giving you face? That's not even worth mentioning. From far away, I saw my legitimate elder sister standing at the gate, arm linked with Zhao Shusheng's, craning her neck expectantly. But the moment she saw the long line of carriages behind me, each loaded with lavish gifts, her pretty face darkened instantly. You've really become someone else now, haven't you, little sister? She said with a forced smile. Even coming home requires repeated invitations before we finally see you. Do you even know what time it is? I ignored her completely and only bowed respectfully to my parents. A fish that keeps its mouth shut is the hardest to hook. Let her have her pointless verbal jabs. I couldn't be bothered. Living alone in an empty bed isn't easy, is it? My elder sister clearly had no intention of letting me off. Walking beside me, she whispered one sentence after another. Don't say your sister didn't look out for you. The battlefield is dangerous. This is only the beginning. Best get used to this kind of bland, widow-like life early. What do you mean? I stopped and asked. She smiled smugly, pity impossible to hide in her eyes. The barbarians of the Northwest, I hear they grow up drinking human blood. Every one of them is fierce and battle-hardened. The second young master of the Shen family grew up as a pampered nobleman, delicate and sheltered. I'm afraid he won't stand a chance. An accident could happen. That's outrageous. I cut her off sharply. What do you mean by that, sister? Our soldiers leave their homes and families, day after day guarding the borders. Also the people can live in peace. You're a woman of a noble household. Yet you spare no thought for the common people. Instead, you shamelessly praise the enemy's bravery and curse the commanding general. What is your intention? Her mouth fell open. Perhaps it was the first time she'd ever been scolded, especially by me, the one she had always trampled underfoot. For a moment, she couldn't even react. You've gone mad. A little bastard dares think she's someone now? Who are you to lecture Wanyue? My legal mother raised her hand to slap me, only to have it forcibly stopped by the attendant beside my elder sister-in-law. Madam Su, mind your words. The little bastard you speak of is the second young madam of the Zhongyong Marquis residence. In an instant, tension filled the Su household courtyard. The one who stepped in to smooth things over was Zhao Shusheng. With just a few words, he reframed my sister's wild remarks as concern gone astray. A future top scholar, how worldly and slick he was I knew all too well. Seeing him deftly maneuver between the 3 families, father's face lit up with delight. My legal mother's affectionate gaze shifted back and forth between my sister and Zhao Shusheng. not forgetting to carve me with a couple of venomous looks in between. "Little sister," my sister said sweetly, "your brother-in-law truly is made for studying. He treats me very well." On our wedding night, he handed the household authority straight to me, and even promised that after me, there would be no other women in the inner courtyard. I nodded silently. In my previous life, Zhao Shuxing had said the exact same things to me. Only back then, that so-called household authority had turned into mountains of debt. As for never taking another woman, how amusing. The one he wanted had long since been settled in the residence. In the capital, people said Zhao Shuxing was as handsome as Pan, refined, scholarly, charming, and romantic. Orphaned young, adopted by a widow, he studied tirelessly out of gratitude, determined to repay his foster mother's kindness. In my previous life, I had been captivated by that extraordinary face, and moved by his filial devotion. But now Zhao Shuxing sat before me, shoulder to shoulder with my sister, delivering perfectly measured words of flattery. The same face, yet the more I looked at it, the more repulsive it became. Hypocritical, greasy, nauseating. Suddenly, I thought of Shen Siji's sharply contoured face. A different kind of handsomeness. Aggressive yet steady, unwavering and resolute. I had never been favored in my natal family. My legal mother and father saw only my elder sister. They didn't even bother speaking to me. My elder sister-in-law sat to the side, calmly flipping through the gift ledger, deliberately making the pages rustle loudly. Bit by bit, my legal mother lost interest in talking, her eyes practically glued to the list. "So many things," my sister-in-law said abruptly, glancing around before curling her lips. "This place can't possibly hold them all." Without a shred of concern for appearances, she tore off a small portion of the ledger and handed it to the servant behind her. "Forget it. Just leave these." The duck that was already in her mouth flew away. How could my legal mother stay seated? She and my sister had been whispering earlier, likely plotting how to spend my return gifts. The gifts haven't even been checked, and they haven't entered the Su residence. "Madam Su, are you trying to seize them by force?" If it were merely a merchant's daughter, the Su family wouldn't have spared her a glance. But the wife of the Zhongyong Marquis' heir, even my father had to show her some respect. Money and backing, she had both. Someone truly untouchable. "Let's go. All this empty show is boring," my sister-in-law said, taking me with her. That day, I finally understood what she meant by living too cautiously. The poor cannot fight the rich. Merchants cannot fight officials. My elder sister-in-law had both, and the confidence to match. My elder sister and the Su family didn't dare provoke her, but that didn't mean they wouldn't vent their anger on me. Over the next few months, I heard that my sister attended all kinds of gatherings among noble ladies. Poetry salons, flower arranging, tea tastings, art discussions, networking, building connections. She flaunted that her husband was the reincarnation of the god of literature, casually carrying herself as the future top scholar's wife. When I heard about the vicious things she'd said about me at one such gathering, I was learning archery with the third young master of the Marquis' residence. Shen Sueji was only 9 years old, yet already carried himself like a little adult. He had sworn early on that one day he would follow his father and brothers, spilling blood on the battlefield, fighting 100 battles until his armor shattered. "Second sister-in-law," he asked innocently. "Is she really your elder sister?" Still young and raised in an environment of brotherly harmony, Shen Sueji didn't yet understand the sordid ugliness hidden behind inner courtyards. The things my sister said about me were indeed unbearable. She claimed I was lazy and gluttonous at home, ignorant and unlearned, always sneaking out to have fun, keeping company with disreputable people. Not only did I neglect my studies, I was supposedly careless even in filial duties. She told it all with such detail that she painted me into a complete wastrel daughter. Whoosh! I loosed an arrow. It struck the bullseye dead center. Shen Sueji praised me, yet still muttered the same thing as before. "Second sister-in-law, you're obviously very hardworking. You learn everything so fast." "That's because you teach well," I said, ruffling his hair, signaling him not to mind what others said. He frowned in confusion. I smiled and only said that the time had not yet come. My elder sister-in-law took me with her whenever she went out. No empty gestures, just solid, practical networking. Along the way, she even helped me praise my elder sister's virtue and diligence, singing her praises in every direction. I was so busy my feet barely touched the ground, yet my days felt incredibly fulfilling. When I finally had a moment to count the days, I thought, my elder sister must also be walking that path of virtue and diligence now. Zhao Xuxing truly did have talent. Growing up through adversity, he clawed his way from a remote, impoverished village to the capital. But dazzling flowers can blind the eyes and make people lose themselves. In my previous life, after that poor scholar married me, he felt he was only one step away from heaven and worked frantically, racing against time. The method he chose was to grind me down. By day, he studied relentlessly, dumping every household chore onto me. Sweeping, cooking, not to mention his foster mother hovering constantly, pressing and supervising. At night, it was even worse. Zhao Xuxing claimed he couldn't bear to waste a single moment, forcing me to recite books at his bedside all night long. I read through every volume on the shelves, my eyes blurred with exhaustion. Meanwhile, he snored like thunder, already dreaming his yellow millet dream of becoming top scholar. Now that this virtuous diligence had been handed over to my elder sister, then let the flowers grow even more blinding. Jiubao Pavilion under my sister-in-law's name produced nothing but rare treasures. Things money alone couldn't buy in the capital. I deliberately chose a one-of-a-kind piece to gift my sister, sending word of our deep sisterly affection. Any friend of my sister could reserve items at Jiubao Pavilion. Let her win first, then let her lose. Store strength, endure, and in the end, uproot everything. The way of business my elder sister-in-law taught me, it should apply just the same to my sister. I was already tired of praising her. She had been lifted so high she couldn't go any higher. So now we wait. Without touching it, without pushing it. We'll see whether the rotten fruit falls from the tree on its own. Second sister-in-law, your letter. Shen Suiji pouted, complaining that his second brother had sent me something again. Yet the grin on his face was unmistakably mischievous. Let your little brother take a look, he said. What good stuff did second brother send you this time? It's nothing, I replied. Just a few small trinkets. I shifted aside, closing the wooden box and trying to avoid Shen Suiji's curious gaze. No way. Second brother has the best eye for gifts. Whenever he went off to war before, he always brought me little local knickknacks when he came back. And now that he has a wife, forget trinkets, I don't even deserve a letter anymore. His words were dripping with mock grievance. Yet as he spoke he took a few steps back, gave a proper salute, and excused himself. My wife Wanner, I hope this letter finds you well. The same opening every time. Yet it always brought me an inexplicable sense of calm. Shen Siji's letters were never long, filled only with scattered, trivial details. He wrote as if speaking at leisure, as though he had forgotten that we had met only once. Perhaps it was his handwriting, sharp strokes carrying a quiet tenderness, that made me unwilling to read too quickly. After murmuring it through 2 or 3 times, I finally set the letter down and opened the small wooden box beside me. Inside was a piece of amber no larger than a fingernail, encasing a tiny red insect, utterly charming. Conditions in the northwest were far poorer than in the capital, yet that never stopped Shen Siji from sending me gifts. A small dagger, distinctive leather goods, unfamiliar Tibetan silver, and unique local spices. Shen Siji, and the entire Zhongyong Marquis residence, showed me the utmost respect. Cherished and valued, my heart swelled. I could only wish for his safety, but the situation in the northwest was far from good. The enemy dragged things out endlessly, striking here and there, relying on the Wei River as a natural barrier, provoking without ever committing to a decisive battle. My elder sister-in-law snapped the abacus beads so hard they nearly flew into my face. Damn it all, so they won't release grain? Fine, we'll do it ourselves. All the stock from Jiubao Pavilion has already been snapped up by those noble ladies your sister brought over. We have money to burn. She yanked out the thickest ledger and slashed several marks across it with force. Indeed, this dynasty valued civil officials over military ones. The emperor was timid, content to defend, unwilling to attack. With this dragging strategy, as long as the borders were held, whether they fought or not didn't matter. If the court didn't supply grain, then winning a battle was pure profit, an investment with no loss. The emperor sought a flawless reign, but it was the frontier soldiers who paid the price, exposed to wind and dust, tense day after day, living a life with no end in sight. And now, even provisions were running short. The enemy struck and relocated repeatedly, making it impossible for our troops to settle down to cook. Most survived on dry rations. Autumn's lingering heat still scorched the land. Though my sister-in-law had money and grain, she couldn't prevent dry rations from spoiling over long distances. Use soybean oil, I suggested. It lasts longer than vegetable oil. As she stood at a loss, my words gave her pause. If there was one thing I had gained in my previous life, it was those endless nights of recitation, which unexpectedly had left me with bits of strange, practical knowledge. Soybean oil had a strong odor, rarely used by noble households in the capital. But in poor villages, common folk used it to preserve food. For no other reason than this. Soybean oil resisted spoilage far better than vegetable oil. Are you sure? Absolutely. She asked only once before standing up and rushing off to arrange the rations, not looking back. Private grain transport lay outside the court's jurisdiction. For a journey of 1,000 miles, only the Marquis' own people could be sent. My mother-in-law was advanced in years, and my elder sister-in-law had countless affairs to manage in the capital. Thus, the task of escorting the grain fell to Shinsueji. At just 9 years old, Shinsueji received his first official mission. Excitement shone unmistakably on the young boy's face. Protect your second sister-in-law. Listen to her. Don't act rashly, my mother-in-law instructed again and again before we departed. In truth, whether I accompanied the convoy or not mattered little. I knew my mother-in-law wanted me to take this chance to see Shinsueji. A husband leaving for war on the wedding night had long been a knot in her heart. She always felt she had wronged me. Across 2 lifetimes, this was my first time leaving the capital. To say I wasn't anxious would be a lie. Everyone in the Marquis' residence was capable and reliable. Along the way, Shinsueji followed the route my sister-in-law had planned, arranging everything flawlessly. I couldn't quite name the emotions in my heart. In my previous life at the Zhao household, I washed hands and cooked soups for Zhao Shusheng, ground ink and accompanied his studies, living in self-inflicted devotion. But in the Marquis' residence, I genuinely felt I was still not enough. I only wanted to work harder, to do more. Second sister-in-law, I know you're eager to see second brother, but you still need to take care of yourself. Though he was told to listen to me, it was this half-grown child who watched over my emotions the entire way. We traveled by day. At night, I devoted myself to figuring out how to compress military rations, working without a moment's rest. The Marquis' residence treats me well, I said. I want to do something for the soldiers. To my surprise, Shinsueji laughed. Second sister-in-law, you don't need to put so much pressure on yourself. With my second brother's temperament, the more freely you act as yourself, the happier he'll be. But if you keep acting so cautious like this, I guarantee second brother will bully you. Bully? That made the 3rd time I'd heard that word. Beneath silver helmets and armor, he was solemn and awe-inspiring. Yet everyone in the Marquis' residence described him like some incorrigible rogue. You'll understand once you get to know him better, Shinsueji said, raising an eyebrow with a smug grin. By the time we reached the northwest borderlands, I had mostly finished preparing the compressed rations. Rice and flour were ground fine and mixed with large amounts of wine, vinegar, salt, and oil, reducing volume while maximizing resistance to spoilage. Shinsueji ate 2 flat cakes in a row, praising the taste enthusiastically. Thanks to Zhao Shusheng's picky foster mother, my previous life had forced me to hone excellent cooking skills. Now, being able to help even a little filled me with quiet joy. It was a joy unlike managing household chores or cooking a few meals. It was the feeling of truly becoming part of the Marquis' residence, working together, sharing one purpose. The final stretch of the grain transport had to be done at night. I, too, had to abandon the carriage to avoid detection by the enemy. The temperature difference between day and night in the northwest was severe. Under the moonlight, crossing the open wilderness, the wind cut my face until it ached. I knew conditions were harsh, but I hadn't imagined they would be this bad. Deserted, barren land. Utterly impoverished. We saw almost no people along the way. And when we did, they were little more than skin and bones. Unwilling to delay the army, I shielded my face with my arm and neck, gripping the wagon shaft as I trudged forward numbly. After about an hour, second sister-in-law, should I arrange for a few people to stay with you and rest for a bit? No need. Let's hurry. My steps began to falter. But the campfires ahead drew closer and closer. For reasons I couldn't explain, I suddenly wanted to see Shinsiji. Suddenly, I missed him, though we had only met once. Second brother. Blinded by wind and sand, I vaguely saw a man and horse charging toward us through the gray haze. The enemy is on the move. Our army is breaking camp overnight. The grain route has changed. Shinsiji snapped his reins and pointed toward another direction. Such was the tacit understanding between brothers. Shinsueji understood at once. Then second sister-in-law. She comes with me. You settle the provisions. What happened next is somewhat hazy to me. Through the blur, I felt someone scoop me up onto a horse. A strong arm wrapped around my waist, shielding me completely. General? MHM. The wind roared past us. Perhaps he feared I wouldn't hear. Shinsiji lowered his head and spoke close to my ear. Things unfolded too suddenly. There was no time to send word, so I came for you myself. I'll take you to my command tent shortly. You've had a hard journey. Rest first, my lady. My heart trembled faintly. A fleeting thought slipped through my mind, just out of reach. You're planning to force a crossing of the Wei River? He clearly hadn't expected the question. After a brief pause, he nodded. There's no time to waste. The enemy shows signs of retreat. I've already ordered the troops to prepare. We'll cut off their escape. This battle must end it once and for all. My thoughts raced as I struggled to recall fragments from my previous life. The battle would be won. Of that I was certain. Shinsiji's strategic brilliance was no illusion. But, is Deputy General Tsun still in camp? He leaked military intelligence. He was thrown into prison yesterday. What intelligence? I asked instinctively, gripping Shinsiji's hand without realizing how much force I used. General, believe me, I remembered something. My words tumbled over one another. Time was tight. Even I thought myself ridiculous. We were husband and wife in name only. As for military affairs, I likely held less trust than one of his personal guards. Rattan armor, he said quietly. Our army has developed rattan armor, planning to drift across the river with the current. He believed me. Before relief could surface, a far worse premonition seized me. In my previous life, his face had been scorched beyond recognition after the battle. Fire, rattan armor exposed to fire. My thoughts shattered. Panic made my teeth tremble, that I don't even know if I explained it clearly. All I know is that before Shinsiji left, he looked back at me deeply. Wait for me. Rattan armor crossed the river. Fire oil floated upon the water. The river burned as if boiling, the flames raging through the entire night. I clenched my hands tightly. Though exhaustion weighed heavily on me, I could not bring myself to close my eyes. In the latter half of the night, Shinsueji delivered the provisions. He didn't even stop for tea before redirecting them across the river. At dawn, I numbly instructed several women in preparing compressed rations, forcing my scattered thoughts into order. They gathered suddenly in the central command tent before the general departed yesterday. No one knows what was said. Aunt Wang was the most talkative among the women. I'd heard she had 2 sons serving under Shinsiji. She rambled on endlessly, her words thick with worry. Madam, aren't you anxious? No, I replied calmly. Worry solves nothing. What we must do is ensure they have no concerns behind them. I knew nothing of warfare. Anxiety would change nothing. Better to do something real. Before departing, I had asked eldest sister-in-law for saplings. Books said that cypress, black locust, cottonwood, and desert willow were drought-resistant, easy to grow, and could help stabilize sand and wind. The riverbanks were scorched, smoke still rising. This already desolate land burned into even deeper ruin. Our army advanced over 2,000 li northward, crossing Mount Liu. The enemy suffered crushing defeats and completely lost control of the northwest. Victory reports arrived one after another, lifting morale, while our stretch of green began to take root as well. After the final batch of rations was delivered, those left behind in camp began preparing to celebrate. The victorious army returned 3 days later. The area outside the tents was packed with people craning their necks to look ahead. I blended inconspicuously into the crowd, squeezed so tightly I could barely stand. And then I saw Shinsiji at the very front of the formation. Mounted on a tall horse, he led the troops, gaze fixed straight ahead. Cheers rose as they welcomed the returning army. But when Shinsiji passed by me, he suddenly reined in his horse. "My lady, come." Amid laughter and teasing, I reached out instinctively. He pulled me up, and we rode together back to camp. That evening, Shinsiji went nowhere. Though much still needed to be handled, he issued a few casual orders, and then spoke with me about the battlefield. Xin Yuan had colluded with the enemy, feigning retreat to lure Shinsiji into an ambush with help from traitors among the ranks. Because of your warning, I kept an eye on him, but I still underestimated the situation. I never expected fire oil to be poured onto the river in advance. That night, after leaving me, Shinsiji secretly summoned the troops and redeployed them. By igniting the river first and using the smoke as cover, he circled behind the enemy and struck when they least expected it. "This is the second time you've saved my life." The enemy was utterly defeated, and he was safe. That was enough. That night, he stayed with me in the same tent. I was so flustered I stood stiffly like a wooden post for ages. Perhaps I could stay with Sister Wang. Before I finished, Shinsiji shook his head. "They're reuniting with their families. You're my wife, why go intrude? And besides," he added lazily, "I'm the commanding general, returning victorious only to guard an empty bed. Where would my dignity be?" The military cot was impossibly small. Shinsiji pulled me into his arms, half his body hanging off the edge. Yet he soon fell into a soft snore. Yin. Such an intimate nickname was rare among noble households. My face burned red. Within days, I fully understood what kind of carefree, incorrigible man the second young master of the Shen family truly was. He took me riding under the excuse of teaching me, roaming freely across the northwest. Gobi deserts, alpine lakes, magnificent landscapes I'd never imagined in the capital. "One day," he declared before the snow-capped mountains, "I'll drive the barbarians beyond Yen Mountain, so they'll never dare invade again." Before I could react, strong arms wrapped around my waist. "Where's your horse?" I asked belatedly. "Sent it back," Shinsiji grinned. "Otherwise, how would I ride with you?" I was used to his sudden closeness by now. Yet my ears still warmed uncontrollably. We stayed in the military camp for over 10 more days as the weather gradually cooled. Strangely, one night the usual charcoal braziers were suddenly removed. "Are we short on fuel?" There was still plenty left during the day. "Cold." Shinsiji flashed a mischievous smile, draping his cloak over me. "Better now." His masculine warmth enveloped me. It was his scent alone. I wasn't cold anymore. If anything, my heart burned hotter. "General, aren't you cold?" "Very." He embraced me from behind, burying his face in my neck, warm breath brushing my ear. "Yin, we're husband and wife. Calling me general now feels a bit distant, doesn't it?" He spent the entire night coaxing me to call him Brother C. I tugged at his collar in protest, afraid I'd push him off the narrow cot if I struggled too hard. So in a panic, I bit his shoulder. "You bully. You're terrible. This was your doing, wasn't it? You ordered the braziers removed." Shinsiji curled his lips into a grin, pulling me close with one arm while the other rested lazily behind his head. "Then tell me, Yin, why would I have them removed?" I knew the answer already. Each morning, curled against him for warmth, I understood everything. His heartbeat thudded solidly beneath my ear. This man was bad in the most dangerous way. Slowly drawing me in, a warm, lingering kiss fell upon my forehead. After our laughter faded, Shinsiji rested his chin atop my head. Whether imagined or not, his breathing grew heavier. "Yin, this bed is unbearable. Tomorrow, I'll give the order. We return to the capital." Shinsiji assigned a small detachment to escort us and return to the capital ahead of the main force. When they had set out, Each of them had been spirited and full of vigor. By the time we turned back, they were visibly darker and leaner, their skin roughened by the journey. Along the way, I took it upon myself to manage the meals, using whatever ingredients we could find, changing methods day by day, determined to make sure they ate as well as possible. Second sister-in-law, your cooking is truly unmatched, Shinsueji said with a grin. When I take a wife someday, she must be someone who can cook. Give you 2 chefs, Shinsueji said flatly as he ate, his expression unchanged. Then you won't need to marry at all. The next day, his third brother was nowhere to be seen. I sent him back, Shinsueji explained casually. There's still plenty to be handled in the military camp. Let him gain some experience. He's your brother, I reminded him. So what? Shinsueji shrugged, finishing the last bite of his meal without a care. I'm territorial about my food, and I prefer not to share. On the outskirts of the capital, a strange hesitation crept in. The closer we were, the more uneasy my heart felt. I bent forward, carefully shaving Shinsueji's stubble. His hands, however, grew increasingly bold, sliding little by little from my lower back toward the front. Stop fooling around, I warned. You're entering the palace to see His Majesty tomorrow. At least look presentable. Are you disgusted with me? Don't like me anymore? He clicked his tongue and crossed his arms, studying me leisurely. What do you prefer, pretty boys? Those decorative types like Zhao Shuxing? What are you talking about? I stammered. After months away from the capital, I had nearly forgotten about my legitimate elder sister and Zhao Shuxing altogether. Now that Shinsueji brought it up, alarm bells rang loudly in my mind that if I remembered correctly, the imperial examination would be held in a few months. Seeing me fall silent, Shinsueji narrowed his dark eyes slightly. He rubbed his freshly shaved chin and curled his lips. Yin, I wasn't born dark, he said earnestly. It's just the northwest sun. Once we're back at the residence and I recover for a while, I'll whiten again. This went far beyond shock. Why was Shinsueji suddenly speaking in such an aggrieved tone? Before he could continue, I covered his mouth with my hand. Can you stop talking nonsense? What does Zhao Shuxing have to do with me? If you keep this up, eldest sister-in-law will laugh at me once we're back. Annoyed, I bit down on his shoulder again. This scoundrel. He had made me almost forget the imposing, awe-inspiring general he once was. Shinsueji entered the palace to meet the emperor, only leaving after personally escorting me to the gates of the Marquis residence. Our second young master's eyes are practically dripping with affection. Eldest sister-in-law teased, nudging me with her elbow. Can't even bear to part for a moment, can he? Eldest sister-in-law. Oh, don't try to charm me, she waved her hands and stepped back. I'm not your second young master, I don't fall for that. She smiled warmly. But truly those 2 brothers are the same. Once they've set their heart on someone, they can't hide it at all. Just wait. Your good days are only beginning. No sooner had I stepped into the residence than I heard that my legitimate elder sister had arrived. Still dressed in coarse cloth, I hadn't even changed before she pushed past the servants and appeared before me. I heard you went to the front lines as well, she said softly. Elder sister was terribly worried. Her words spoke of concern. Yet her eyes brimmed with mockery as they swept over my plain clothing again and again. She even lifted a silk handkerchief to cover her nose and mouth. General Shen returned victorious. Surely he'll receive generous rewards, she continued. Don't say I didn't advise you. A man like that is already half ruined. If you're smart, you'll set aside some silver. After all, the days ahead are long. She stretched her hand out toward me. If money's inconvenient to move, you can leave it with me. We're family. Elder sister will keep it safe for you. I shook my head and let out a soft scoff. Her eyes were sunken, exhaustion impossible to hide even beneath layers of powder. She must have truly lost herself to cooking and reading, still believing Shinsueji had returned half dead like in my previous life. Did elder sister come to borrow money from the Marquis residence? I asked calmly. Running short of silver to grease the palms of noble families? Her face stiffened instantly, turning an ugly shade. Zhao Shuxing's foster mother, though a peasant woman, was no fool. No matter how others looked down on her, she had a resilience bordering on obsession. determined to squeeze into aristocratic circles. But families wealthy for generations weren't so easily welcoming. With my deliberate praise of elder sister's virtue, she had painted herself into a corner. No way back, only forward. With my subtle nudging, noble ladies grew ever more selective. Jewelry not from Yubao Pavilion wasn't even worth looking at, driving elder sister's expenses even higher. Her dowry was steadily converted into lavish gifts, money flowing like water to maintain connections. Living a second life herself, she firmly believed Zhao Shuxing would pass the exams and rewrite his fate. How could she spare the expense? I'd heard she returned to her natal home several times a month, begging silver from our stepmother. Becoming the wife of the top scholar came at a steep price. Little did she know, as long as she was willing to pay, Zhao Shuxing's title as Zhuangyuan could be bought by her alone. Of course, I had no intention of telling her that now. Your brother-in-law is destined to be the top scholar, she said coldly. If you know what's good for you, hand over silver and let me arrange things. Otherwise, when the time comes, neither your husband's family nor your own will protect you. Using the Marquis residence's money to pave Zhao family's official path, I replied evenly, forgive me for failing to see where the benefit lies. Don't use the Marquis residence to pressure me, she sneered, leaning in close and whispering. I'll tell you this much, Shen Siji's been at war for months. By the time he returned, his body was already ruined. He's no longer a real man. I raised my hand and slapped her. The sound rang sharply as she spun halfway around. After all this time, I said coldly, elder sister still can't control that filthy mouth of hers, spreading rumors about other people's household affairs. Should I go ask Madame Zhao about your own bedchamber matters with Zhao Shuxing? You. She clutched her cheek, face flushed crimson, unable to utter a word. She mocked me so righteously, as if her own marriage were bliss itself. Yet Zhao Shuxing would never consummate the marriage with her. The entire Zhao household answered only to Madame Zhao. Elder sister had no voice at all. You'll be the one living as a widow in all but name, she shrieked. I won't, I answered calmly. The one guarding an empty marriage will be you. As I turned away, I caught sight of Shen Siji, his expression strange, unreadable. His body is ruined? Not a man? Living like a widow. Shen Siji didn't even bother changing out of his court robes. He hoisted me over his shoulder, carried me straight inside, pinned me against the wall. And the moment the door shut, the questions came flying one after another. Do you want to see mother first? I blurted out, grasping at straws. No need. His gaze locked onto me, sharp and unblinking, as though he intended to see straight through my bones. Let's settle the matter of dignity first. That was Su Wanyua talking, not me. Why are you taking it out on me? I groaned, covering my face, wishing I could burrow straight into the ground and be done with it. Look at the mess my so-called elder sister had made. In my previous life, Shen Siji had returned crippled, likely injured in places best left unspoken that he probably never consummated the marriage until his death. But times had changed. How could the two lives be compared? Perhaps noticing my strange expression, Shen Siji's temper flared. Yen, he demanded. Since the day you married into the Marquis residence, how have we treated you? I pursed my lips, thought it over, and answered honestly. Mother has treated me well. She taught me how to manage the household. Eldest sister-in-law has taken great care of me, teaching me bookkeeping and how to cultivate relationships. And third brother has always been respectful. I learned archery from him. Silence fell. When no further names followed, Shen Siji's lips slowly pressed into a thin line. So many people, he said coolly. Yet you don't mention me once. The hand at my waist tightened. He pulled me closer until I ended up seated squarely on his lap. You treat me very well, I hurried to add. You respect me, value me, and give me full standing within the household. Shen Siji raised a brow, clearly unimpressed. That's it. My fault, he said lightly. This is something I should have said first. I checked. Xin Yuan never abandoned his wife. I also understood that you were hinting for me not to take concubines. Very well, he continued evenly. I can promise you this lifetime, it will be only you. Is that acceptable? My mouth fell open. What did he think he understood? That lie I told on our wedding day had only been meant to warn him to be wary of Tsing Yuan. How in the world had it twisted into no concubines? No, wait. What did he just say? Only you for this lifetime. Yin Yan, Shinsiji said softly. The trees you planted in the northwest have already sprouted new buds. It's time we plant ours too. I desire you. I wish for mutual affection. No grand speeches. Shinsiji was like his way of waging war, results over rhetoric. He was very much a man. And I had no intention of living like my elder sister, guarding an empty marriage. I once thought that marrying into the loyal and brave Marquis residence, having my mother-in-law's protection, my sister-in-law's guidance, and my husband's respect, would already be more than I could hope for. Never did I imagine I could ask for more. So, what happened to Tsing Yuan? I asked, then yelped. Ouch, why are you pinching me? Now that he had tasted sweetness, Shinsiji pulled me close, repeatedly squeezing the soft flesh at my waist with unmistakable irritation. At a time like this, he growled. You bring up another man? On the battlefield, he was decisive. In matters of affection, he was downright domineering. I'm talking business, I said, lifting myself up to plant a light kiss on his cheek. As expected, his temper came fast, and went just as fast. I remembered clearly that Zhao Shuxing and Tsing Yuan had once been close, one civil, one military, working hand in hand until they gradually seized control of the court. He's detained, Shinsiji said. Colluding with the enemy, treason. He'll be executed soon. He told me that after this great victory, he had been rewarded, and then voluntarily relinquished his command. The northwest was territory he had won, while the northern border had always been guarded by the Marquis and the heir. The throne required balance. He didn't need to explain it now. I understood. So, he added lazily, your husband is very idle these days. Whatever mischief you want to stir up, say the word. I'll indulge you. You're already assuming I want to do bad things? If not, he snorted, why bring up other damn men? Annoyingly, that logic wasn't wrong. With the imperial examination still over a month away, I wasn't in a hurry to act. Better to wait until the rotten fruit was truly rotten. Meanwhile, Shinsiji, having surrendered military authority, spent his days like an idle street rogue, hovering behind me and aggressively asserting his presence. When I calculated servant wages, he propped his chin on his hand and stared. So often that even Mother found him irritating. Write a letter, she said coolly. Have the Marquis return early and replace this thing at the frontier. I hurriedly covered Shinsiji's reckless mouth and dragged him outside. Do you know the Minister of Rights? The fat, greasy old man? Yes, him. Husband. Have someone keep an eye on him these next few days. Don't interfere, no matter what happens. Shinsiji looked puzzled, neither agreeing nor refusing, just smiling lazily at me. I sighed and spelled it out. I've received word that Zhao Shuxing bribed the Minister of Rights to obtain the exam questions in advance. Shinsiji scoffed. The resentment from being the leftover choice during Su family's husband selection was written all over his face. He promised the minister my elder sister as payment. The reaction was immediate. A visible full-body shock. It took him a long moment to confirm he'd heard correctly. Scum. Yes. Absolute scum. That was exactly what Zhao Shuxing had done to me in my previous life. Once connections were bought with money, 10 years of bitter study meant nothing. The Su family's daughters were famed beauties in the capital. That old fox from the ministry had long harbored vile intentions. Zhao Shuxing leaned right into it. Filth meeting rot, perfectly aligned. In my previous life, I had resisted to the death, slashing the root of that disaster with a knife. Zhao Shuxing then turned the tables, blackmailing the minister, threatening to expose his ruined body if he didn't comply. Only this time, I wondered whether my elder sister possessed the same desperate resolve to burn the bridge behind her. Before all that unfolded, however, something far more interesting happened. With Tsing Yuan dead and Shinsiji freshly rewarded for his military merits, the Zhao family quickly shifted their flattery, no longer aimed upward, but sideways toward this newly minted brother-in-law. Under the guise of a victory celebration, they privately reserved a private room, claiming it was merely a small gathering. Shinsiji took me with him. Inside the room sat only Zhao Xuxing and his adoptive mother. For some reason, my elder sister did not attend. After several months apart, Zhao Xuxing had gained noticeable weight. The once delicate, Panin-like pretty face had lost much of its charm. As for his adoptive mother, she looked far more radiant than she had in my previous life. Standing side by side, there was hardly any visible age gap between them at all. Throughout the meal, the Zhao matron was a torrent of sweet words, praising Shen Siji one moment, flattering Zhao Xuxing the next, as if she wished she could knead the two men together into a single perfect figure. Before long, our Shenger will place first in the imperial examination, she said brightly. One civil, one military. You two will surely become the backbone of the court's rising stars. Shen Siji responded politely, echoing her words with casual agreement. Yet the smile on his lips never once reached his eyes. After several rounds of wine, he began to slur his words, tongue thick with drink. I apologized, explaining that I would help him change clothes, and then we would take our leave. The moment we stepped out of the private room, the haze in Shen Siji's eyes vanished. He grabbed my hand and pulled me straight into the room next door. I knew it, I said. A man who can down 1,000 cups in the army. How could a few drinks knock you out? Men are not allowed to be unable, he replied seriously. He tapped my forehead lightly, then slid aside a hanging painting on the wall. Behind it was a small hole, perfectly positioned to spy into the neighboring room. You can do this? I whispered, delighted. Shen Siji told me the tavern belonged to his sister-in-law. From the moment he stepped inside, he had sensed Zhao Xuxing was up to no good, so he decided to play along and watch. If you dislike him, you could have refused outright, I said. Why come at all? I was curious, he replied calmly. They say Zhao Lang looks like Panin. I wanted to see for myself. After speaking, he shot me a sideways glance. Flatly, he added, You looked at him 3 times. I did not. Didn't you? He pointed to his own eyes, indicating he'd seen everything clearly. You rolled your eyes at him 3 times, that you've never rolled your eyes at me. Men's competitiveness truly knows no logic. I ignored him and leaned closer to the peephole to look into the other room. And with that single glance, I froze. What is it? Shen Siji asked. He squeezed his head beside mine, and then stiffened violently. On the way back, his arm around my waist trembled non-stop. Shen Siji cursed under his breath, repeatedly calling it an assault on the eyes. Yen Yen, he demanded. You saw that too, didn't you? I saw it. Zhao Xuxing's adoptive mother sat squarely on his lap, her arms looped around his neck, one head lowered, the other tilted upward, pressed close together. It was something Shen Siji did with me every day. Of course I understood what they were doing. Besides, in my previous life, I already knew this so-called adoptive mother was not truly his mother at all. The age difference was merely a title, a cover for Zhao Xuxing's particular perversion. But now, I didn't see anything, I said calmly. No, Shen Siji snapped, we're leaving. Right now. My mind is filthy. We need to go wash it clean together. In 20 years of life, Shen Siji's entire worldview shattered within days. Perhaps it was simply too much for one man to bear. That very day, the once swift and decisive young general made a choice, a truly catastrophic one. If his eyes had suffered, then everyone's eyes would suffer too. The tavern wall collapsed without warning. Zhao Xuxing and that pair, caught in the heat of their entanglement, were exposed to the public in full view. At the same time, chaos erupted at the Ministry of Right's residence, screams echoing like ghosts. Reality proved that my elder sister was far crueler than I. A single golden hairpin plunged straight into the minister's chest. Blood flooded the ground, terrifying the entire household into silence. The causes, the sequence, the details, none of it mattered much anymore. It was merely the filth of a weak scholar's household, dragged into daylight. Zhao Xuxing was stripped of his imperial examination qualifications, that my elder sister, for stabbing the minister, was thrown into prison. Inside, she spoke wildly, spilling everything. How Zhao Xuxing bribed officials, how he colluded with the Minister of Rights. An investigation followed. Zhao Xuxing and his adoptive mother were imprisoned as well. Shen Siji, already brimming with ill intentions and thoroughly nauseated, had them placed together in the same cell. The cell sat at the very end of a corridor, out of sight of others, yet fully visible to my elder sister. Shusheng, the woman wailed. We were ruined by that little bitch. If I'd known, I'd have fed her more drugs, let her die on the minister's bed. Zhao Shusheng's eyes flashed with hatred as he slammed a fist into the wall. I only married Su Wanyue for her family's money, so you'd have a free servant to use. Who knew that trash would be so useless? Giving away scraps of copper and iron and thinking she could buy me a career, he sneered. The nonsense she bragged about outside made my face burn with shame. If she'd had the sense to spend one night pleasing the minister, she might already be the top scholar's wife. A woman with no insight deserves to lose to a mere concubine's daughter. His words were venomous, scholarly, but endlessly inventive in cruelty. Don't worry, mother, he continued coldly. I already gave the minister Su Wanyue's personal silk handkerchief. When the time comes, we'll swear she seduced him. We won't be touched by this at all. My elder sister's eyes burned red. Before she could speak another word, she collapsed unconscious. At the court hearing, all three parties insisted the same story. Everything stemmed from my elder sister's obsession with becoming the top scholar's wife. She seduced the minister. She demanded the exam questions. She lashed out in regret and wounded him. The handkerchief was hers. The bribe money came from the Su household. She was caught on the minister's bed. Rumors had long circulated of her calling herself Madam Top Scholar. After repeated interrogations, even father was implicated. Only Zhao Shusheng walked away clean. Little sister, help me. Please help me. When I saw my elder sister again, she was unrecognizable. Her hair hung loose over her face. I nearly failed to recognize her at all. It was Zhao Shusheng, she sobbed. He offered me to the Minister of Rights in exchange for his career. I did nothing wrong. I reported the crime. I deserve credit, not prison. And that old woman in the Zhao household, they did disgusting things behind my back, spent my money and made me cook and wash like a servant. You're the general's wife now, she begged desperately. Bring soldiers. Kill them all. She clutched my hand, pleading for me to believe her. She must have said these words to many people before finally reaching me. A woman whose own reputation, and in-laws' honor, were utterly destroyed had already been cut loose by the Su family. Even our stepmother, indulgent as she was, would never sacrifice my brother's future for her. Elder sister, I said softly, I warned you long ago, Zhao Shusheng was no good man. Why wouldn't you listen? She froze, then pushed her hair aside and laughed bitterly. I see now, she whispered. You came back too, didn't you? That bastard became top scholar in the last life by offering you, didn't he? Realization dawned. Far too late. Her eyes filled with malice as she grabbed my wrist, teeth clenched. Why is it that in both lives, you're the one who wins? I shook my head and pried her hand away. Because in both lives, only you were obsessed with winning. I just wanted to live well. Bitch. It should have been you who got ruined, she screamed. I'll kill you. I'll do it again. This time, I will be the general's wife. She babbled words only she understood to others. She was merely mad. Yet I was grateful to her. When I uncovered the Zhao family's filth, I had once begged the Su family for help. Father turned a deaf ear. His eyes filled only with his future top scholar son-in-law. Zhao Shusheng's adoptive mother had even flaunted herself before me, locking doors in the Zhao residence to parade their twisted affair. It was my elder sister who ended it all, and gave me a second chance at life. The prison doors opened. A man stood with his back to me, hands clasped behind him, straight-backed, imposing, unmistakable. Finished, he asked. Shin Siji turned, his eyes holding only my reflection. Brother Siji. A name that once felt cloying, now spoken without hesitation. Before I could reach him, he strode forward and pulled me into his arms. Decided? Yes, I answered. I've decided. We had agreed, after this meeting, we would leave the capital and head north to the frontier. The Marquis was growing old. My brother and sister-in-law could not remain separated indefinitely. For Shin Siji to stand in for his father and brother at the border was the best choice. On the day of departure, my mother-in-law clutched my hands, unwilling to let go. My sister-in-law and third brother stuffed our carriage with supplies. A blade of grass repays spring sunlight at a river, a breeze beneath the moon. With one thought released, 10,000 freedoms follow.
Thank you for listening Beneath the Moonlight. If this story touched your heart, remember to subscribe to Moonlit Love Stories for more tales of love and destiny. Until we meet again, may the moonlight keep you company.